In breaking news, an appeals court just said to Donald Trump and his authoritarian ways, "Not today, pal." And I have all the satisfying details of his tremendous loss, like the world has never seen before, coming up next. Since this report is connected to Trump's weaponization of the government against his enemies, let's first do a quick roundup on that, and then I'll show the roundhouse punch he received today from the court. First up is Senator Chris Murphy, who explains how the current lockdown is connected to Trump's misuse of the government to silence dissent and hunt down all of us.
This is a country that is falling apart because Trump is in the middle of an authoritarian takeover. We're not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We're in the middle of it. And so for me, I'm only going to vote for a budget that fixes this healthcare problem, but also slows Trump's ability to act unconstitutionally and try to use the IRS or the FCC or the Department of Justice to punish his political opponents. I have no moral obligation to vote for a budget that literally funds the destruction of our democracy. And you are seeing that the president is absolutely committed to using these agencies to try to destroy dissent in this country. And that, frankly, I think should raise the stakes for Democrats. We shouldn't be willing to unquestionably vote to fund the agencies that are then going to be used to hunt down all of us, Democratic opponents of President Trump, lock us up, put us in jail, audit our taxes. That's not a democracy, and we shouldn't fund a budget that is going to be used to destroy our democracy.
He said, "We're not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover, we're in the middle of it." And this next story, which is much more granular, is a perfect example. Let me set it up by saying my only frame of reference for the expression, "Where are your papers?" are World War II videos that I watched as a kid. Hitler's Nazi soldiers were always asking it. Well, what's old is new, and the Chicago Tribune headline reads,
"ICE tickets Chicago man with legal residency $130 for not having his papers on him. It's not fair. I'm a resident." Ruben Antonio Cruz was sitting with a friend in Rogers Park when ICE agents pulled up onto the street. The immigration officers stopped their truck and went straight after them on October 9, Cruz told the Tribune. "They asked us if we have papers. I said I do, but I don't have them on me." Cruz, a 60-year-old man with heart problems, originally from El Salvador, recalled in Spanish. The agents stood Cruz up, put him in their truck, drove around in circles, and asked questions. He said, "Under federal law, registered foreign nationals must carry proof of registration with them at all times. But prior to a second Trump administration, it was rarely enforced. As President Donald Trump escalates his immigration crackdown in Chicago and its suburbs, Operation Midway Blitz, agents are using broad federal authority when targeting suspected immigrants," legal experts say. While federal officials claim they are targeting the worst of the worst, bystanders have been swept up, and people across the Chicagoland region have accused the government of widespread civil rights violations.
For the full story, please visit the Chicago Tribune's webpage. That story about Trump's war in Chicago is the perfect setup for our breaking story about his defeat at the hands of an appeals court.
Breaking news this afternoon, a federal appeals court has denied a request from the Trump administration on the National Guard in Illinois. Last week, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking the deployment of troops here. The Trump administration requested a stay of the court order as they appeal the ruling. But today, the appeals court is leaving that order in place, meaning the National Guard cannot be deployed for now.
And a CBS article broke down the ruling. It began with, "Appeals court continues to block Trump's deployment of National Guard in Illinois."
At this stage, we cannot say the administration is likely to succeed in demonstrating that the president lawfully federalized the Guard under provisions of Title 10, the Seventh Circuit panel wrote. It consisted of judges Ilana Diamond-Rovner, David Hamilton, and Amy St. Eve. Rovner was appointed by former President George H.W. Bush, Hamilton was tapped by former President Barack Obama, and St. Eve was nominated by Mr. Trump. The spirited, sustained, and occasionally violent actions of demonstrators in protest of the federal government's immigration policies and actions, without more, does not give rise to a danger of rebellion against the government's authority. They wrote, "Federal facilities, including the processing facility in Broadview, have remained open despite regular demonstrations against the administration's immigration policies," the judges said. And though federal officers have encountered sporadic disruptions, they have been quickly contained by local, state, and federal authorities.
Finally, a win for democracy. That ruling is calling Trump out for his misrepresentation of the facts in order to abuse his power. If nothing else, Trump is consistent. He will always overstate what is. He calls immigrants invaders, he calls protesters insurrectionists, and he calls those who disagree with him enemies of the state, all as a precursor to the unconstitutional move he's about to make. How can we get more of this pushback, please? The court made it crystal clear that no president can activate the military and bend the justice system at his impulsive and revenge-minded will. And their words weren't just a legal setback. They were a civics reminder that some of America still runs on the rule of law, not the rule of one man's ego. Let's savor this rare moment of accountability because for once, the system worked by telling the Donald, not today, pal.